All right, what we have here is a transistor radio. This was sent in from Belgium. Yes, all the way from Belgium by a viewer, Freddie. He sent in these really delicious candies here. And in his letter, he said they're called noses. But there they are. They're kind of a purple color. They're sort of hard on the outside, but it's not hard as in crunchy. It's chewy hard, and they're not sticky on the outside. So it's sort of got almost like a waxy coating. And then the inside has a soft consistency, sort of liquidy. I'm looking for a sticker. Oh, there we go. Okay, so that's it. Geldof Kuberdons or Kuberdons. That is the actual name, but I think the slang is something like noses. And the ingredients, it says glucose, water, gelatin, and then framboos aroma. So I guess that's one of the flavors. If anyone recognizes those ingredients, please let me know. But these absolutely are super delicious. But as a diabetic, I have to eat them very sparingly. Let's take a look at what this is. Nice packing here, Freddie. You stuck these little foam pieces on the back just to make sure that it wasn't gonna get banged around too much. Now this radio, before we look at the front, it's definitely old. I think it's probably from the 70s. Let me flip this around here. Oh, there it is. It's a Philips radio. So I'm just checking Freddie's email on the computer here. He said that this belonged to his brother. I guess his brother was moving from one house to another and was like, I don't want this thing anymore. So I guess he left it behind. I'm not actually sure when this is from. I'm gonna predict from the 80s. Volume knob, tone knob, has a fine tuning knob because this does have different bands here. Long wave, medium wave, short wave, and FM. So if you're on the shortwave band here, which is in the megahertz, use the large tuning dial, which does feel very nice to turn. You get to say 11 megahertz or so, and then you can use the fine tuning knob just to get zoned in on exactly what you need. Just gonna set this right there in the middle. Automatic frequency control, power on and off. On the side here, we have a headphone jack. On this side, we don't have anything. On the top here, there is an antenna. Clearly, this is not the original one because the original one would have definitely gone all the way out to there originally. Let's check out the back here. There's a Philips logo there. There's no other model numbers or anything on the back here. It just says to prevent electrical shock. Do not remove the cover or back. No user serviceable parts inside. Refer to qualified servicing personnel. Really? Qualified, huh? Bottom doesn't have much going on. Now this does have a mains input here, 220 to 240 volts, so clearly that's not gonna work. It's possible, I'm gonna open this thing up, maybe we'll find some taps on the transformer that allow this to be powered off the mains for 120 volts. All right, so let's pop open the cover here. There's a type number and a serial number, and whatever FTZU 121 is, and another Philips sticker. And nice, no battery leakage in here. It does take 4 C cells, which has, of course, or these Ds, these might be Ds actually, R20 or equivalent. I have the bench power supply here set for 6.2-ish volts or so. Freddie did test this before he sent it on mains, and he said it worked fine.
Can't have any pudding! How can you have any pudding if you don't hear me?
All right, so here's the radio, and it's working really well. Well, it needs a little TLC, so I'll turn the volume down for a sec. The tone control doesn't really appear to work, but listening to some music, it's pretty much not doing anything. If I turn it to all the way to the extreme of high, it cuts out all the bass, and down at the low side sort of cuts out all the treble, but there's really nothing in between. So this pod, I guess, is just really dirty, perhaps. So, okay, I was confused for a second because I was down here on this end of the FM band, well, of the dial, and I'm normally used to hearing our OPB or our NPR stations and the jazz and classical stations, and I was getting totally different stuff. But then I looked, 104 megahertz, and the 80s and 90s are down here. This dial is reversed of like every radio I've ever used. So what I'm looking for is actually on this end. You know, this radio works really well on FM, at least. It just sounds great. I have the antenna up, but I don't even think that's really necessary. Yeah, this is cool. And I like its looks. Its aesthetics are kind of cool. What is this? Late 70s, maybe early 80s? So let's crack this open. Maybe I can clean these pots, and then I need to go test the AM performance, but I have to do that upstairs. I do see actually a little evidence of battery leakage at some point in this radio's life. It's very minor though, and I don't think it even touched the contacts. It like came out the size of the battery or something. So I attached one of these clips into the positive terminal here, and now I can't get it out. It's sort of, the metal has a little kind of split area where it's supposed to touch the battery, and I tucked a hook in there, and now it seems like it's permanently in there. The mains input jack here is just a standard figure 8 connector, so I have plenty of power cords that could go in there. I think if I can't convert the transformer, oh, there we go, it's coming off right away. If I can't convert the transformer over, then I'll probably just remove it altogether. I don't really want to leave the wrong transformer in there. This radio is never going to find its way back to Europe. It's going to stay in North America. So in that case, there it is. Very analog. I love it. Ugh, this battery thing I did here is annoying. Oh, there we go. It came off finally. I am going to remove the antenna, the FM antenna, so I can take this back cover and give it a wash. That'll get rid of this battery gunk that's in the bottom here and just give it a little bit of a clean. So there is the inside of this radio. Check out that chunky speaker. No wonder why it has good bass, 4 watts, but it's pretty large in there. It actually kind of goes all the way down to the bottom here and all the way up to the top. All right, so one thing I've noticed immediately is I don't think there's any work to be done on converting this to 120 volts. And here is why. Take a look at the power plug here. Let me zoom in. Notice it looks like it's got 3 positions, and there's a little plug right here. See this? Now, I took a look at the back cover, which is still in the sink washing. And this thing was on the back cover, and this is how it was on there. And if we look at that, 220 to 240 volts, well, if I flip it over, 110 to 127 volts. So this radio was basically designed to be multi-standard power right from the get-go. So I just need to move this little plug thing over onto the other side, and when I screw the back cover on, this little plate goes on like that, and now I can plug the standard figure 8 connector into the correct pins. How cool is that? From a construction standpoint, we're talking about 100% good old analog radio tuning here. There's nothing digital going on. If I turn this up like this, there's a rather lengthy and large bar antenna for the AM reception. The only thing that kind of bums me out is I can't get to the potentiometers for the front controls. I may try to remove this PCB, but it makes me scared because there's a dial cord, right, that goes around the tuning capacitor here through all the knobs, and there's pulleys and things. I hope there's a system for easy removal, that it's not all attached, because if that's the case, I don't know about ever getting this thing back together again. I don't want to break it because it does work as it is right now. I'm going to take a closer look at how this might work. So I took out 4 screws from the PCB, and I poked and I prodded and I tried to see if it would come off, and it doesn't seem to come away particularly easily. I'm not totally clear on how it works. So I did take the front knobs off, and like the tuning knob, it's over here, but the capacitor's over here. So there's clearly a wheel with a bunch of string going on, and yeah, I think I'm not gonna do anything with that. But what I can do is it looks like just between the plastic and the PCB, I can see the backs of the potentiometer and and I can see little gaps where there's little holes in them. So I should be able to get some Deoxit into them, hopefully get those working a little bit better. Change of tactic. Didn't seem like I was having any luck with the Deoxit just through the little crevice there. So I just took out 4 screws on the very far corners, and it looks like it sort of disconnects the majority of this from the front. And now I think that gives me visibility, better visibility to those pots, and it does. They are right there. And now I can get the Deoxit right into them because the opening is towards the bottom. There we go. I want to keep the radio tilted up upside down like this. And yeah, I can tell that worked because the tone knob is now much easier to turn. It was kind of gummy feeling, a little, and the wire just came off of the antenna. I knew that was going to happen. No problem, I can just solder that back on. Okay, so radio is back together. I'm going to put these screws back in so I can tilt this back onto its bottom, and then I can give this thing a test. If anyone has any ideas of the right way to take this radio apart, definitely let me know in the comment section. Eventually I'll probably have to check these caps, and I can't do that from this side. Since the radio appears to be functional at the moment, I'm not particularly worried, but I'd just like to be able to do that if I ever need to in the future, get to those. I have a figure-8 mains cord here, so I'm gonna try this radio out on the mains. So the pin is over in the different position. There we go, that worked. I heard the radio turn on too. I think it's on right now. Yes, it is. All right, yeah, it's working.
Upwards of 800,000 Palestinians were forcefully displaced, fled for their lives.
So cool, that does appear to be working. It's fine. There's a little bit of a hum when it's on mains, and I wouldn't be surprised some of these caps here, a little dry. They probably are used for filtering the AC input. Do I see, there's some diodes right here. There's the fuse. Yeah, there's probably something here to smooth it out, and they're probably not doing so great. So what I need to do right now is just fix this antenna wire. Let's just reconnect that. So the tone control appears to work now. It's not great, like there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of change, but I suppose with a single speaker in here, I'm just not gonna hear a lot of highs. And there's a good amount of bass in this radio. Yeah, I mean, I think this thing is great. I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a clean, especially the knobs and the front case here. I'll just clean this up and go get the back cover out of the water. It's been soaking in there, and put the radio back together. Well, I've been upstairs testing, and the radio, well, it doesn't work super great. FM radio, that works totally fine. But the other bands, shortwave, medium wave, and long wave, pretty much barely work. In fact, AM, medium wave, which is on right now, kind of works a little bit. You're getting some of the really powerful stations, but if I move the little band selector back and forth, then it goes away entirely. So that sort of tells me that the problem is the band selector, which is this large switch thing, is probably dirty inside. I gave the radio a really good cleaning, and I applied 303 aerospace protectant to all of the black plastic, and now the radio looks really good. It's shiny, the plastic looks good, it's rejuvenated again. And the fact that this radio is from 1978 or thereabouts, you know, the plastic is gonna get a little dull over time. That's just what happens. So products like this, while it's not the best plastic restorer in the world, it does work, and because this is not being exposed to the outside elements, it's inside the house, this protective layer that makes the plastic look good again probably will last for a good long time. Also, really no issues powering up off the mains. I think the capacitors are still good. In fact, I had it unplugged overnight, and then I went and turned on the power switch while the thing was unplugged, and there was actually a pop out of the speaker. So those capacitors actually kept a charge overnight, which is pretty good. So I don't think they're bad, and I bet you the little bit of humming that I can hear through the speaker was probably like that from when this thing was new. So I'm going to open this back up again. I'm going to use this very yellow cloth here. Let's see if I can get some Deoxit into the band selector, make this thing work again on those other bands. I was actually shopping last night at Dollar Tree, which is like a Poundland kind of store in the US, and I got these little tubs here, 2 of these $4, so 50 cents each. They're plastic, but they have really grippy rubber feet on them, and also on the bottom here there's rubber. And I thought that would be perfect for holding screws. Something I could throw the screws into and not worry about them going all over the place. It's not easy to tip over. Gotta open the battery compartment. I don't really like opening that. Maybe I'll just leave this screw out in the middle here. No, I'll put it back in. I just don't like opening this. I'm worried I'm gonna break the little tabs one of these times. So it's this metal bar right here. That's the band selector. So it's like a large sliding switch in there, and there's a bunch of contacts. Probably this radio was used most of its life or its entire life on AM, especially as it's been sitting for a long time in Freddie's house. So it's pretty likely that inside of there, it's just gummed up and corroded. So I'm just gonna probably, let's see, tilt the radio onto its side, just for maximum getting in of the liquid. And here we go with the Deoxit. Just get that in there. And as I spray, I'm gonna move it back and forth. And of course the Deoxit can is leaking all over the place. Okay, the Deoxit is leaking out the bottom there. Let's get a little paper towel here and we'll just put that there. And I'm just gonna move that selector switch back and forth a whole bunch of times. Okay, turn the volume down. That made a huge difference. Down here in the basement, I don't get any AM reception or medium wave. And on this radio, when I would set it to AM, I would just hear silence or near silence. But now, I hear all the usual interference that I'm expecting to get down here. Let me try the other bands. So that's long wave, medium wave. So this is the shortwave, and I'm not really hearing anything. I think shortwave uses the rod antenna. Yeah, I'm not getting anything. Let's see. It really does seem improved. Like I can go onto AM and it's not really scratchy anymore. It does weird things when I have it in between the two bands. But before, just having it in the middle of AM, if I just sort of touch the knob a little bit, it would get scratchy and the stations would kind of come and go. In fact, this is the Deoxit that dripped out of there. And look, there's a little bit of brown there. So it's just probably was some gunk inside of there that's coming off.
Including lawn care, fences, retaining walls, patios and decks, lighting, and irrigation systems.
It's really amazing how much bass this has on FM. The sound is so bassy and full. It's pretty great. Well, on shortwave, I'm still hearing nothing, not even any interference. So that might be a fault, but I also don't have any other shortwave radios right now, so I don't even know. Maybe I just don't get anything because I'm in this bunker with the concrete walls. That might be normal. Okay, I think it's time to take this out and reassemble the radio. I'm just gonna wipe up any excess that dripped down here. Okay, I'm back and I've been listening to the radio upstairs and I have the old 5-core down here as well. I was comparing the AM reception on this radio to the 5-core. And I have to say, whoops, I was about to say, some batteries fell out. So yes, I put some D cells in here. I did find some in the house. They're unmatched. I just wanted to see if there was a difference listening with the mains cord through the transformer or the batteries, and actually there really wasn't. The only thing that the batteries help with is the cord is not connected, so you can position the radio to get better reception. Anyhow, it seems AM reception is working great on the Philips radio, but there's some weird issue that it seems that the AM band is shifted that way. So the dial's reversed, right? So this is 500 kilohertz and this is 1600 on this side. It seems that maybe it's a couple hundred kilohertz off. So when it reads 1400, I'm actually picking up around 1600 or 15 something. And because of that, there's actually one AM station that's off the top of the band this side, which I don't really care about. And over here on this end, there's some dead space. So there's a good amount of space, there's just nothing. And that's because there are no stations down there on that end, because it's actually, I guess, below the active range that's used here in the US. But the range that's printed on here on the scale is what we use here. So there's clearly something slightly out of alignment. But from a reception standpoint, and that's comparing it to the 5-core, seems to pick up stations the same. And there's actually one cool thing on this radio that the 5-core doesn't do. When you're in between stations, it sort of blanks out the static. And I guess that's just a function of the circuit design, but it means tuning through the dial. You don't get a whole bunch of static in between stations. It just sort of goes from a station that's clear and sounds good to nothing, and then you find the next station. The AM audio quality on this radio is good. No distortion or anything like that on the music stations. And it's a really nice full sound. It sounds a lot better than those modern digital AM radios you can buy. The 5-core sounds good as well, but doesn't have nearly as much bass on either FM or AM as this does. Now I did try moving around on the long wave and the shortwave bands. Shortwave seems to be picking up some stuff, but I couldn't get a clear signal on anything. I could hear stuff that sounded like talking, but it's using this rod antenna, which is just not long enough, and yeah, it's not ideal. Plus, you know, where I live, I don't think there's really good reception. And then long wave, which looks like it's 260 kilohertz down to 120 or so, or 150 kilohertz. It just seems to have nothing. I was picking up one talk radio station in there, but sounded a lot like what was to be on AM here. So I'm almost feeling like it was a mirror of one of the really powerful AM talk radio stations. It was some conservative talk radio station, and I didn't listen long enough to see if I could hear a station announcement. And it was showing up here around this 230 kilohertz range. So maybe that was the equivalent of, I don't know, 800 something kilohertz, like divided by 4. Not quite sure. But anyhow, yeah, this radio though is really working well now, and it just looks good. And I don't know how much else to say other than this thing kind of rocks. I love the aesthetics of it. I love the buttons. These things feel so chunky, and they feel so satisfying to turn these knobs. And now that I put Deoxit on there, no more static. It's just very cool. So I think I need to end this video here. I've been talking long enough on this. Thank you very much, Freddie, for sending me this radio all the way from Belgium. And then thank you for those awesome little sweets, those noses. Delicious. I had another one last night. So good. And I've been sharing it with people as well as they come over. And everyone's like, ooh, those are delicious. So thank you for that. And yeah, thanks. This is very cool. All right, I think that's it. So if you like this video, thumbs up. If don't forget to subscribe to this second channel so you don't miss anything, and put your comments down below. And thanks to my patrons, and also check out my main channel if you haven't seen that already. Okay, stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.